As I'm sure all of you already know, Israel carried out a surprise attack against Iran on June 13th, striking military and nuclear facilities. Iran has retaliated by striking Israel with missiles. Today, on 22nd of June 2025, the United States of America has entered the Iran-Israel war, obviously on the side of Israel, and struck against 3 of Iran's nuclear facilities, allegedly to prevent Iran's capacity to enrich uranium and create nuclear weapons. The US imperialists have not declared war, and they claim that this does not mean war. In fact, the US is already celebrating victory, claiming to have utterly destroyed Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity. The extent of the damage caused by the US attack is still unclear, and Iran claims that it isn't nearly as serious as the US imperialists claim. Things are still uncertain, and whether the conflict will escalate further is yet to be seen. It's very easy to imagine how this could escalate, but then again, Iran has obvious reasons for wanting to avoid escalation, and the US also might see Iran as too large a bite to chew. At any rate, this is yet another sign of the criminality and brazenness of American imperialism and their partner in crime, Israel. It is also another sign of the global imperialist crisis, the fight for markets, resources, and strategic interests. All revolutionaries, progressive, and peace-loving people will denounce this attack by the US imperialists. It is important for people, especially in NATO countries and the US itself, organize against and oppose the imperialist actions of the US government. On 21st of May 2025, the fascist Indian government carried out a massacre, killing 28 Indian communist revolutionaries, including the General Secretary of the CPI Maoist, Comrade Basavaraj. In the following days and weeks, CC members Comrades Sudhakar and Bhaskar have also been murdered. These heroic people's fighters died in battle against the class enemy. They gave their lives in the struggle for the people's welfare. Their bravery and devotion to the working people deserves our most profound admiration and respect. Their behavior should be a model for us. Each one of us should strive to devote their life to revolution, like these martyrs did. Opportunists will try to use the death of these comrades to argue that the revolution is losing, it was wrong to start the revolution cannot succeed, and other such reactionary falsehoods. It is true that the revolution in India has suffered severe losses. Since the beginning of 2024, the Indian fascist regime has pursued its latest extraordinary military campaign against the revolutionaries and the masses, known as Operation Kagar. Operation Kagar mobilized more than 100,000 paramilitaries and soldiers, and in the operation which killed Basavaraj, 10,000 troops were used to encircle the revolutionaries. In the course of Operation Kagar, thousands have died, including many children. Hundreds of villages have been burnt. The operation is really two-pronged. It is intended to destroy the revolution, and at the same time it is intended to exterminate indigenous communities, to allow Western logging and mining corporations to steal their land. But despite this horror, which the Indian government, dripping with blood, has unleashed, the revolution will continue and will succeed. The government has been trying to destroy the revolution in numerous other operations before, such as Operation Green Hunt, starting in 2009, and Operation Samadhan, starting in 2017, ever since the revolution began in the early 2000s. The government of India is being armed by the USA, and thus has strong weaponry. But nonetheless, the revolution will eventually succeed, because the Indian regime has no way of solving any of the burning issues of the country. The crisis in the country has only intensified. Lenin defines a revolutionary situation as, quote, when the lower classes do not want the old way, and when the upper classes cannot carry on in the old way, unquote. The fact that the government is forced to resort to such massive military mobilization only shows how much the revolution threatens it. The government can try to exterminate the masses, but the revolution cannot be extinguished. The situation of the poor and landless farmers suffering under landlord and usurer exploitation is so terrible that there's an epidemic of suicides. It is clear that such flammable material is ripe for revolution once they are enlightened by class consciousness and organized by communists. The fascist government is driving the indigenous peoples off their lands and burning their villages. The indigenous masses can no longer live, but must rebel to survive. The state has lost its ability to effectively govern the rebel territories. The state has also been forced to resort to fascism, despite trying to present itself as a parliamentary regime and supposedly the world's largest democracy. Here we have a clear case of a revolutionary crisis situation. Some people will say that the revolution shouldn't take the form of guerrilla war, but should instead take the form of immediate insurrections in the cities. First of all, the peasantry, who form the majority of the revolutionary fighters, demand an agrarian war and democratic revolution. This makes it possible to use the countryside as a base for the revolution. But also, the state's military apparatus, propped up by the USA, is much stronger in the cities, and therefore the correct tactic must be guerrilla war in the countryside. To this, opportunists will respond that if the state's military apparatus is so strong, then the revolution should not take place. Instead, despite the clear revolutionary situation, they should merely wait and gather forces. Wait indefinitely for some even more severe crisis, which would weaken the government, making it topple almost by itself. But this puts them in the position of the opportunist Kautsky, who said, quote, "The Socialist Party is a revolutionary party, but not a revolution-making party," unquote. By this, Kautsky meant that the party must not start the revolution, but the revolution takes place automatically when the conditions are ripe. Lenin ridiculed Kautsky's position and said that the revolution is an art. It does not happen by itself. It must be practiced, it must be planned, and it must be started. The revolution, whose main forces in India are composed of peasants and indigenous masses, is led by the proletariat, who has provided its leading cadres and also carries out strikes in the cities to hinder the government and support the People's Guerrilla Army. For example, strikes were held on June 10th and 20th. Especially during this trying time when the fascist terror is raging in India, the revolutionaries deserve our support. And all over the world, workers, Marxists, and progressive people are starting to show solidarity. There are meetings, declarations, demonstrations at embassies of India, etc. Many people calling themselves socialists are sitting comfortably at home, especially in the wealthy imperialist countries, and choose to criticize the revolutionaries. But meanwhile, the revolutionaries are giving their lives for the liberation of the people. The comrade fighters who have given their lives have earned eternal glory and become immortal. Long live the heroes, your memory will live forever. Long live international solidarity, the revolution will win.